The Timeshift.
Hello and welcome, I'm Chris Hall and this is The Timeshift, my sci-fi fun fest, and it's great to have you with me as always, here for a brand new series of The Timeshift and of Doctor Who! Yay! It's like Christmas and birthdays come all at once, isn't it? Yes. This week I'm going to be talking about The Sorcerer's Apprentice, the debut episode of this brand new series. Now because this is like a critiquey, reviewy kind of thing, this video is going to be spoiler heavy! So if you don't want this episode spoilt for you for whatever reason, then it's best to switch the video off right now. To the left of me there's probably a great raft of alternate videos that you could be watching right now. Maybe even a couple by me if you don't want this episode spoilt for you. In any case, we're about to dive headfirst into it, so let us dive headfirst into the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Ooh. Okay, so now it's time for a brand new series of Doctor Who, and I have to say this, even though I did it in the stupid, over-the-top, asinine, YouTube-y way, I have to say it because this episode is blimey Charlie. This whole discussion about the episode is going to be full of spoilers, and given that this episode starts out with an atomic bomb of a reveal, it's probably best that if you haven't, then to disappear very, very quickly, because jeepers, I think this episode could quite honestly be the best debut episode to a new series of Doctor Who in the new run of Doctor Who that I think I've ever seen. It is truly remarkable that the opening episode this week is written by the same person who wrote the opening episode to last series. It's amazing. This is probably one of the best episodes of modern Doctor Who I think I've ever seen, which is truly remarkable as this isn't a series finale. This isn't some kind of middle episode written by some guest author who we kind of wish is the real showrunner. No, this is a Stephen Moffat-led episode that didn't make me want to punch my own eyes out. It's truly fantastic. It's almost as though somewhere in the break between last series and this series he's remembered that he can actually write, or alternatively the Beeb said, well, we've got to do another contractually obligated Dalek episode, so let's just let Moffat do whatever the hell he wants. And he has, and he's produced something which is truly, truly fantastic. I am awestruck, genuinely awestruck that we have an episode here, the debut episode to a series which is very well paced, with some fantastic writing, some great character moments, and more importantly than not, actually has a causality, a logical set of events to it. It feels very much as though the events within the story are influencing the story rather than the story influencing the events, if that makes at all sense. It's less of a T-Rex in the Thames, let's have big silly imageries, and more let us actually have something with substance that has measure and has gravitas to it. I think that this episode is brilliant for all the reasons you said. It has great pacing to it. At no point within this episode does it ever feel as if it's dragging, or does it ever feel as if it's going too quickly. It feels as though everything within the episode is given in perfect amount of time to breathe. Yeah, there's a few things I would have liked being developed here and there, but it's very minor stuff. All my critiques for this week's episode are going to be very, very minor, very bullshit, very nitpicky stuff, but you know, I need something to gauge the vial and the bile within my body, because I am, once again, surprised just how brilliant this episode is. As, let's be honest, the opening episode to a new series of Doctor Who in this new run that we've had for the past 10 years has never really been that good. Even to the one that Christopher Eccleston had with the Autons, just, nah. And as the past couple of series have proven, the opening episodes have been disastrous. I mean, the one with the dinosaurs from last year was my second worst episode of the last series when I did the countdown list. So to have something this week that feels actually grown up, but at the same time something that families can actually enjoy, is truly fantastic. For all intents and purposes, this genuinely felt as if we're watching a classic episode of Doctor Who in more ways than one. Not just because we have the Daleks, not just because we have Davros in it, but the fact it feels like it's actually about something something that is real, something that is substantial, not about having T-Rexes in the Thames or giant trees suddenly springing up all over the world. It's actually about exploring a theme and a principle which is central to the Doctor, and is ultimately his major criticism as a character. That he's a character who is overly compassionate to just about everybody. Within this episode, we get the flashbacks, we get the stock footage from the previous Doctors from when they've had to face the Daleks, and the last bit of footage they use is from Genesis of the Daleks, with Tom Baker having his big speech about whether it is right or not that he destroys the Daleks before they're even begun, whether it's right for him to take the lives of his entire race when at some point in the future they may turn good, they may become a great civilization that could ultimately save the universe. And that is a theme, that is an idea, that the Doctor sometimes has to save horrible, nasty people, horrible, nasty aliens, creatures that want to destroy the universe, creatures that could quite easily destroy the universe and may ultimately destroy the universe. And that is something that's never really been explored that much really since then. It's been flirted with here and there, not in New Doctor Who at all. And finally we get to this point now, after having probably last series, at the end of the day, probably the worst series of New Doctor Who I think I've seen, to having this episode, which is actually about something. This episode is, of course, starts off with the battlefields bit, which I wasn't entirely convinced of. I was a little bit worried when we had that, when we saw the kid in the hand mine fields, that this was going to be an episode about how war is hell and about how landmines are horrible, nasty things, and all the very relevant criticisms and comments that you can put into any kind of bit of science fiction. But to be honest, I've seen it done to death, and seeing as the end of last Doctor Who and the entirety of last series of the Doctor ripping on soldiers and such, it's nice that that isn't the case for this episode, and that it was a Dalek episode that actually explored the Daleks and actually dealt with them and their creator in a way which feels like they actually are a real monster. When I was just talking briefly, I was saying that it felt as though the Beeb may have actually turned around and said, well, we've got to do a contractually obligated Dalek episode. That is actually a fact. Doctor Who has to have an episode each series about the Daleks. That is contractual obligation. That is I don't know the exact nature of the agreement, but it is a clause within Terry Nation's estate. He's the guy that, of course, created the Daleks, and his estate has decreed that if the Daleks aren't used at least once a series in Doctor Who from now until pretty much until the world blows up, then the BBC and Doctor Who will lose the right to use the Dalek characters. Which is why in the past, I suppose, we've had episodes which feel as if they've just been cobbled together effectively at the last minute just so that we can keep these characters, these iconic race of monsters in Doctor Who, even though realistically they're never going to work outside Doctor Who. There's no other sci-fi that the Daleks could work in apart from Doctor Who. You can't use them in Star Wars, you can't use them in Star Trek, you can't use them in Blake 7, you can't use them in any other science fiction because they simply wouldn't work. So the whole idea that we need this as a caveat seems ludicrous to me, but whatever. I found that this episode was brilliant. It was an episode that actually, all the composite parts of it just suddenly clicked for me. When I watched this episode, it was like a great weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I had this horrible, suspicious feeling because, I'll be honest, I've not watched any of the trailers for this new series of Doctor Who. I've avoided all promotional material, all screenshots, all artwork, all concept art for it because I honestly can't go through the whole bullshit that I went through last series when we had the trailer for the new series of Doctor Who, and it was T-Rex in the Thames. It was very much T-Rex in the Thames. It was big, ludicrous imagery that at the end of the day ultimately meant nothing for the series as a whole and not even really relevant for the episodes that they're actually in. So I wanted to avoid all that so I wouldn't be in the situation where I'm getting angry over a bit piece that I thought was going to be the whole episode. I thought the entire episode was going to be about dinosaurs in London, but it turns out it was just the one, and it was in the Thames. Then the Doctor has a teary-eyed moment for it. You know, I didn't want to go through all that again because it's quite honestly, I'm sick to fucking death of it. Even though the bits of the trailers I've seen up until this point have been fine, perfectly fine. Seem more concerned about the opening episode, the opening two-part than anything else, which can perfectly live with, in all honesty. Now, where was I? I have to say there are a few issues I had with the episode itself, but once again, they're only minor nitpick things. And once again, it's going back to the hand mine thing. I found them to be weird. Not the good kind of weird, but the are we really sure we want to be doing this weird? Not in the it's controversial or that it's a ham-fisted analogy or allegory for anything, but the fact of their hands with eyes in the middle of them just looks really weird. Just the hands themselves would be an effective enough image. I actually say that entire opening bit, that entire bit where the kid's trapped well, Davros is trapped in the hand minefield, I found that to be incredibly tense bit. I thought that to be the genuine bit where we're in this sudden realization that maybe, just maybe, this new series of Doctor Who isn't going to be the Doctor running about pointing at things whilst dun 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 plays in the background. This may be an episode in which there actually is a point to the episodes, that we can actually have bits which are tense and there actually is some suspense, so that the episodes themselves can actually be a bit scary. I would have been perfectly fine if the entire episode was just the Doctor and this child trying to navigate this minefield. It would have been better even if it was just a minefield. It wasn't hand mines or some other bullshit sci-fi thing. Speaking of bullshit sci-fi things, I have to say that I am glad there is so much bullshit sci-fi in this episode, with the exception of the hand mine stuff, because it genuinely then felt as if we were in real sci-fi territory. Even though it's all techno babble that means nothing, it actually makes it feel like real Doctor Who again. We're not on some random estate in some part of North London. We are on alien worlds, in alien planets, on alien spaceships with weird alien races and different bits of weird scientific equipment. The Doctor, when he's talking to Davros in the hand minefield, is talking using an acoustic corridor. That doesn't exist. That's not scientifically possible. When he says it, you go, oh yeah, of course it's an acoustic corridor. Of course it is. Makes perfect sense. Why didn't I think of that? It makes perfect logical sense. It doesn't, because it's bollocks pseudoscience, but in your mind, in the science fiction world, it makes perfect sense. And we have the Shadow Proclamation, which felt like the ultimate thing from when it was introduced last time on, being brought back, but at least in a way which felt at least apt. It wasn't suggesting the weird almost space Illuminati thing, which was effectively what was being suggested when they introduced it during David Tennant's time, or at least they were introduced as a surrogate for the Time Lords, seeing as they're still off in Ibiza or whatever the hell the Time Lords are doing right now. And I'm honestly confused about all that. I may do a video about it in the future, but realistically, whatever. I found that the sciencey techno babble I was okay. It was perfectly okay with, because it at least felt real. It felt consistent with Doctor Who land, and it was weirdly enjoyable having a science fiction program which actually functioned like a science fiction program and not the science fantasy show, which is what apparently Doctor Who is. I always hate that. I always hate it when people saying, yeah, Doctor Who isn't sci-fi, it's science fiction, science fantasy. Almost they're trying to apologise for bad writing and bad scripts and bad technical ideas, which you really shouldn't do. This is an episode which proves that it goes to show why I get so angry about Doctor Who, because Stephen Moffat can be a fantastic writer, certainly for Doctor Who. He's produced some of the more iconic moments I think we've had in this new run of Doctor Who, produced us with some really memorable characters and great moments. So to see him curate episodes like the Deep Breath episode from last series, it just felt insane that this is even the same guy who could give us Blink or Listen, that we could have episodes like that. And having this week's episode, having the Sorcerer's Apprentice, it then feels as if, oh my god, he's actually put in the effort in this time. He actually cares about what he's doing. And it does make me a hell of a lot more optimistic for the rest of this series. I mean, let's look back to last series and just how pessimistic and pissed off I was really from that first episode. I have this rule when it comes to Doctor Who, which is that I'm willing to accept 5 stupid ideas, just ideas, concepts, lines, moments which just have me sat watching the TV like. Which, if I get 5 of them in a series, that means I'm giving up watching Doctor Who forever. And just the Kill the Moon episode from last series put me at that point very, very quickly. Meaning that by the end of the series, we're only really one strike away from me never watching Doctor Who again. But thankfully, of course, we had Mummy of the Express, we had Flatline, which saved the day for me, then we had Dark Water, which was great, and then Death in Heaven, or whatever it was called, the last one, which was whatevs, but, it kind of fell apart. just because of bad writing, but won't hold that against it. Dumb ideas in it, but not startlingly dumb. And thankfully we had no startlingly dumb moments in this one. I know the closest thing to a dumb moment I could find within the episode was when the Doctor came out in medieval Essex on the tank playing the electric guitar, which felt as though it could be a dumb, stupid moment, but at least in the story it earned the right to be dumb and stupid, and it made sense logically, and it was something that was in some way set up by the fact the Doctor is off having his last hurrah, effectively. So I can forgive it for that. And there was also other bits where I did like the fact that even though they didn't explain how Missy survived at the end of last series, at least they kind of hinted at it with her little mobile time TARDIS-y thing, the little remote that she got that took her back in time to medieval Essex, because that at least gives us some presumption that just before she got hit by the laser from the Cyberman Brigadier. Jesus, what a stupid idea that was. When she got hit by the Cyberman Brigadier, she could have just quickly just pressed the button just to send her to a different time spot, which, you know, this episode may literally take 20 minutes after that for her or something, I don't know. But at least it gives us some suggestion of that, and given that both she and Clara die at the end of this week's episode, well, not at the end, towards the end, you know, either they both teleported away or they didn't, and next week is the Doctor trying to sort time and space out to bring them back, which is probably what's going to happen. I am really happy with this week's episode. I'm really worried that next week's episode is going to be the Doctor saving the day using the power of love, which is almost always how it ends with Doctor Who at the moment. Next week's episode could be bollocked up spectacularly, which is why I'm not looking forward to it, but I'm still time I am, because if we can keep this pace up for the rest of the series, this series could be fantastic. Truly, truly fantastic. If we can get episodes of the quality we had this week for the rest of the series, this could be the best series for me of New Doctor Who since the first one with Christopher Eccleston and Russell T Davies as showrunner. It could be as good as that, but we'll soon see. Now we're going to take a moment now to move on to performances. Who stuck out to me and who stuck out to me like a sore thumb? Okay, so it's kind of like a running thing from last series of Timeshift was that I didn't dwell too much on the performances of Peter Capaldi and Jenny Coleman, purely and simply because I got sick of just saying they're great. And once again, both of them are great. They are fantastic, they are brilliant, as almost always they are. It is, of course, a refreshing thing once again to be able to say that I like Clara's character right now, because when she was first introduced to the show, I found her utterly, utterly insufferable. I hate the fact that the companions in Doctor Who effectively become more important than Doctor himself, and that the characters are almost ultimately turn into space gods in some way, shape or form, don't they? You know, you had Billie Piper getting the TARDIS sucked into her, and then she got all weird eyes, and I think that's the source of how Captain Jack can regenerate himself. And with Catherine Tate, that's her name, Catherine Tate, how she became part Time Lord somehow, and now if she ever gets reminded about the Doctor, she'll die, which, given that she lives in a world where aliens are invading London almost every week, then she's already dead by now. And of course, Amy was the one that waited and is now trapped in time. Not quite space god stuff, but still fairly odd. And of course, Clara was the impossible girl, and now she's just Clara Oswald, and yay! She's a normal human being who I can relate to, yay! And I don't find her annoying at all, yay! And she's going to be leaving at the end of this series, yay! Okay, I shouldn't be too celebrated at the fact she's announcing that she's leaving, but her character has run a course. She ran a course at the end of Matt Smith's time as Doctor Who. Last series was like a reprieve for her, like a lap of honour. It was me finally seeing what other people saw in the character to begin with. She was great. She should have left at the end of last series. She didn't. Apparently now she's finally going to leave because she's going to be in a drama about Queen Victoria. So yeah, great, whatever. Great way to hopefully end it. Maybe it depends whether they fuck a character up between now and then. Really. I mean, her character ran a course. Like I say, she ran a course, and there's nothing they can really do to change my mind on the character. There's no real new directions you can take it at all. Last season when we had her and the boyfriend thing, the dynamic that threw up with the Doctor was interesting and would have been a fine way to end it had they just gone away and got married, or they both died, or whatever. I think that when she eventually goes, she'll end up finding herself in the afterlife with Mr. Pink, so At least that will give us some closure, but of course we'll soon see. Michelle Gomez, I think her name is. I honestly don't remember. I've not done any research for this week's episode, it has to be said, so I do apologise for that. I've been working all day today and I didn't get a chance to really go through my notes ahead of this, which is why I keep referring to the little pad to the side of me. I think that she as the Master now is fantastic, and it was great to have this episode where she could actually genuinely scary and terrifying, that she wasn't the I'm crazy woman. There was the odd bit of that, but that felt a little bit more earned than when she was towards the end of Dark Water. Well, not Dark Water, the second one, Death in Heaven, where she was just like a Saturday morning cartoon villain at that point. So to have a genuinely interesting Master is great. I didn't like what's his face that was on it before it, Simon Paul Ringer, whatever his name was, that did it before it. I really don't see what people saw in Derek Jacobi being the Master for the whole of 5 minutes, but whatever, all their opinions are always available. I welcome them openly with open arms. And I have to say that I think the standout performance when this was insert name here who played Davros. I'm not sure whether it is the same actor who played him when we brought Davros back during David Tennant's time or not. If it is, then bloody hell, that's a surefire turn around for that. When we had him last time was cackling and evil like a Saturday morning cartoon villain. And now he feels substantial, weighty, with gravitas. It feels as though this person has played Davros since day one. That we're having the old classic actor back to bring them back to send the character off one last time. You get the sense, whenever this actor is speaking as Davros, the sheer weight of time within his breath. It's a character that feels old, that feels worn out, that all the fight and all the zest and the energy to even live has managed to be ebbed away from him, to the point where he's just so willing to die, that it is truly remarkable. It is a fantastic performance just for a Doctor Who bad guy at the moment. To have someone that feels three-dimensional is amazing to me. All too often with Doctor Who, it's just the evil alien with the big pointy teeth, who is evil just because they're a monster that gobbles up children, or a robot that turns people into other robots. It's fairly bland, two-dimensional alien bad guys. Now we have an alien bad guy who may not be in Doctor Who for a considerable length of time after this. This may be the last hurrah of the character full stop, or maybe just for another 5-10 years or however long it is. And if that's the case, then fine, I could live with that, because the way that this episode is treating the character feels in a way which is deeply respectful. All too often in Doctor Who, when they resurrect old bad guys, it's done in a way which feels at times very flippant. At least we forget when they brought the Sontarans back, they brought them back as 4'5" men with Power Ranger armor. I know that sometimes we have ludicrous armor, but Sontarans are supposed to be like 9 feet tall, and now they look as though they could quite easily be in a remake of the Seven Dwarfs, for Christ's sake. I mean, really. And of course, well, we haven't really had any weird bits for the Cybermen, but or the Daleks, but you know, no. There is a bit in one of the Doctor when they brought back the Cybermen when they were in the alternate universe, where there was just a bit where it looked like when they were in a rave, when their heads were about to explode. I'll put a clip on it, but I don't want to get sued by the BBC, and that's the closest thing to a daft moment they are. But once again, it's very easy for people to be flippant with Doctor Who monsters, and not that they always do it, but sometimes it feels like they're ribbing each other. They're just going, hey, remember how the Sontarans were big and scary? Now look at them. Now they look as if they could be jockeys. Space jockeys, if you will. Ho ho! Any other performances? Oh, what do you call him? Cutty Sark, the weird snake man, the guy that looks like the world's worst Cenobite, the kind of people that the kind of person that all the other Cenobites would point and laugh at. Cenobites, for people who don't know, are the bad guys from Hellraiser. A really, really great horror movie that you should see at the next available opportunity. It's very twisted, but you will probably like it. I thought that it was weird. I hate with Doctor Who, they think that to be creepy. But it's not just Doctor Who, it seems to be just about anything at the moment where they want someone to be creepy and evil sounding. They have to talk like this, or they all talk like this. I'm going to look for the Doctor. Where is the Doctor? which made him sound a lot more like Pinhead, you know.
I'm looking for the doctor.
I just hate that. I really hate that. And of course the CGI on the snakes was crap as always. Oh, and speaking of the snakes, something that pissed me off. The closest thing to piss me off in the episode that I actually liked was the fact that when the Missy and Clara had these snake armband things on, they were trapped in the little prison room that Missy just magically manages to uncouple herself without any sign of effort. Which you could kind of say, yeah, it's Missy. Probably broke the poor critter's neck and then stepped on its head and smashed it to pieces while it's family watch, because that's what Missy and the Master does. But, you know, I'm willing to accept that. Then when they're outside in the little floaty spacey bit, then Clara just magically doesn't have the snake on her anymore, only because the plot commanded it. All they just needed was a moment of just going, done, that's it. But instead, with Missy, you just hear a weird crunching noise, and she just goes, I'm Missy, I'm crazy. There goes the snake. But with Clara, she just kind of goes. That must have been a bloody hard day for whoever directed that episode. Okay then. You're in space. I know this is a great big green screen and you're in a big green room, but you got to pretend that you're in space, but it's not quite space. You're in a space that's not space, but you see space, and it's really weird and mysterious, and you're exploring it somehow. How can you embody that, Miss Coleman? How can you do that? Well, I could walk around like this. That's perfect. You do that, and Gomez, you do what the bloody hell you want, because you do that anyway. Jesus Christ. Oh, is there anything else I really need to talk about that can't be talked about after the summary bit? No. Oh, Doctor Who doesn't have a screwdriver anymore. I hope that's a thing. Because I'm pissed off with the sonic screwdriver. It's too much a Deus Ex Machina, which means it's too much of solving the plot at the end of the day. It really doesn't need that. I like the Doctor when he uses his own wit and guile. I'd be perfectly fine if the Doctor somehow created a thermonuclear reactor out of a paperclip, some string, and a small boiled haddock. I'd be perfectly fine with that, because at least that at least takes some effort. In pointing a magic sonic screwdriver, a magic wand at something, and it fixes the problem. I'm sick of. I'm quite frankly sick of. So yeah, performance-wise, Davros guy was brilliant, fantastic, amazing. The standout performance in this week's episode. Worst performance was the guy who played Snake Face, because it was just this mysterious thing, man. Yeah, I'm gonna get you, Doctor. Yeah. Jesus, right. Anyway, let us go to the overview, but I think you can kind of tell what I'm going to say about this. And now for the overview. It's only going to be short because, well, this episode is really starting to drag on a bit. I do apologise for that. I just get into a little groove sometimes, and the fact I don't have any notes really of any substantial merit is another reason why this episode is overrun a little bit. And of course, it's a new series, so I have to get the waffle of how I hated last series out of the way. But this week's episode was fantastic, and if this series can continue like this for the rest of it, it will be fantastic. This week's episode felt like classic Doctor Who. It feels as though it could be considered a classic of Doctor Who, providing of course the second part of it is just as good, which I hope it is. I hope this is the turning point for Doctor Who for me, because I don't hate Doctor Who for all the bullshit and all the anger and all the venom that I point at it. I do love it. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't love the show as much as I do. I have to say that because I understand that some people's views on certain episodes can be radically different from mine. I understand that that's the way things go, and I understand, of course, that something I myself am personally sick of is the YouTube personality thing, waving their arms and swearing and getting angry and such. I'm sick to death of it, but I only do that when I have a reason to swear and shake my arms about like I just don't care. I have reason for that when I have an episode like Kill the Moon, which made me want to punch the wall and throw a remote at the TV screen. You know, this week's episode thankfully didn't do that, and I hope we never get to that point again with at least the rest of this run of Doctor Who. If next week's episode is fantastic again, it will perk me up no end, because it then makes it feel as if they actually thought about this series ahead of time. This wasn't just a bunch of episodes thrown in because somebody at some point or another saw Doctor Who when they were 9 years old back in 1972 or something, you know. At least it feels a little more substantial now. And you know what, I'd be perfectly fine if next week's episode is great and the rest of the series is crap. Alright, I wouldn't be, but at least that would mean that this little story is fantastic and will live on in the annals of Doctor Who history as being a classic Dalek episode, if not one of the all-time classics. At least then I could sleep easier at night when I think about Doctor Who, which I don't really do when I'm about to go to sleep, but whatever, you get the idea. At least if next week is fine and everything else is crap, then at least we've had one victory, and Stephen Moffat was at least kept away from the sugar and the video games and the fizzy pop for long enough to actually sit down and write a good episode of Doctor Who. But whatever, what do you think? If you enjoyed this episode, if you hated it, leave a comment in the comment section below and tell me what you thought of it. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you have any questions for me about just about anything Doctor Who related? I will refer to them, I will answer them either directly in a comment if it's only a short thing, or at the end of next week's episode. Or maybe I'll dedicate a whole episode to it if it's truly substantial. Whether I'll find the time to do that or not, I honestly don't know, because once again, I'm recording this after just getting in from work, so we really don't know with these things. My schedule from now on is going to be incredibly weird. Maybe towards the end of this series it'll get a little bit less weird, but you know what, we'll soon see. But in any case, thank you for watching, and goodbye.